Hi everyone, it's Ross again, back with another terrain making hobby desk. So, what are these, I hear you ask? What are these? Yeah, there you go. These are gonna be my tea. No, it's not sandwich fingers or anything like that. This is just hard chipboard. No, you can use thick cardboard, things like that for basing terrain, things like that. But the thicker the better. It's PVA glue, which is my main product, will warp and bend your bases. So this is real thick MDF. So that's going nowhere, son, no matter how much PVA glue I put on it. And what am I using these for? Well, I'm using these for hardcover and light cover for Star Wars Legion. Now, I want to use it on a Hoth table. So what I'm going to do is 3 hardcovers, 3 light covers. So what do I mean by that? If you've never played Star Wars Legion, it's a brilliant game. Get on it, check out some demos, and it's the Star Wars universe. So even if you don't play the game, fantastic models to pick up and paint. Fantastic. And I've done a few unboxing already, and so has the other gang as well, the other House of Chaos crew. So what I mean by a light cover, for example, is, because it's an Hoth table. Wow, it's really tipping it down outside. Sorry, you can probably hear that in the background. Is just a few like bumps and lumps with some snow over the top of it, so it's light cover. I'm thinking snow's not bulletproof, and it's going to be about half the height of the models. So your regular stormtroopers, things like that, it's going to be about half the height, so maybe about like that. So I'm just going to put maybe some cork or polystyrene down, spray it white, put some flock on it. I'm spraying it white because if any of the snow flock does chip off, it won't show up quite so badly. And then what I mean by hardcover, same thing really applies, but I'm using cork pieces, big chunks of cork, to make it look like rock and a little bit of snow on the top. So I use cork, not actual rocks, to keep the weight down, and cork does look quite rocky. So I like to tear bits of cork up, but I will show you as I go. So we're going to start with the soft cover. Okay, so several ways you can do this. A little bit of polystyrene or some rocks, or tiny cork pieces, whatever you want to slightly raise the base in the center. That's all we're aiming for. So I do like my cork strips. I've got plenty lying about. It says reaching for one nearby. Such a hoarder. These are cork stripping, so become a lot longer than this. And you can use it for your laminated flooring, round doorways, things like that in modern house builds. So I've managed to pick up a massive pack of these for 12 quid. Now it sounds like a lot, but you're getting about 5 meters worth, maybe a bit more, and that will go a long way. But you can use polystyrene, that's totally fine. I'm using this and super glue, a little bit of PVA glue over the top, purely because this is quite absorbent and will go really hard. Whereas polystyrene is likely to chip. It is likely to chip. Doesn't matter how much PVA glue you put on it, eventually bits will break off. So I am going to go with survivability. So I'm going to break up some pieces of this. I might even do a polystyrene one just to show you the difference. We'll come back after I've stuck the bits to the board. Okay, so I've done 2 bases with the cork and 1 base with polystyrene. Now for once I use super glue with polystyrene. Polystyrene melts with super glue. I don't mind at this stage because I want it lumpy and bumpy. I was just showing you can use polystyrene, and it's cheaper than using this stuff because you have to go out and buy cork, unless you drink a lot of wine I suppose, and you get free cork, yay! But yeah, those are the strips that you could buy that I was talking about a second ago. They do cost money. This is going to be next to nothing, so a bit of super glue and it will start melting. That doesn't matter because we're going to put the good old PVA glue over it anyway. So what I'm going to use, rather than using sand, is today I'm going to try out good old kitty litter. So this is clean kitty litter, I might add. Don't use used kitty litter. Bad. Okay, so I just want something a bit thicker than regular road sand. And what I'm going to do with this is just pour it all the way around the cork. Break off bits of cork later on as well, because I don't want it too smooth. I'll just put loads on, I'll work it in with a brush. And same with the polystyrene. And I'll put this on. Hence, that's why for once, Ross has been sensible in using newspaper. Because any waste from the kitty litter go in the newspaper, and I can kick the camera. I can scoop it up and use it. So scoop it back into the container. Nice and sensible. So I'll drown this stuff in PVA, and then I'll cover it in the kitty litter. I mean, you can use sand, that's not a problem, but it would have to be quite coarse sand, quite thick sand. So other ways of covering the bases would be to use wood filler, things like that, and that's totally fine. I mean, good old wood filler. So a little tub like this, not a problem. You know, it's quite a sizable tub, and you could get it from a pound store. You know, that's okay. You know, you can scoop that on there, and that would definitely go off hard. But I do worry sometimes, does it key to the base? Is it going to crack off? Things like that. And it is actually a bit heavier than you think. You put that amount of wood filler on there, it is heavier than you think, which is fine. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere, it's not going to get knocked over. But basically, use whatever you would like. I'm using cork because it looks semi-rocky, but you won't see it anyway when it's all painted up. Okay, so I've covered them in cat litter, and to make them a tad harder, I put PVA glue on the pieces overnight. So it shouldn't be too high. So when I put the snow flock over the top, it will look like little berms of snow, little drifts of snow, not full-on pieces of cover. Light's a bit weird at the moment, sorry about that. It seems to be apocalypse outside. It's always something weird with the weather down here. But yeah, so what I'll do now is I will blast them with a cheap rattle can, so a cheap primer, and attack them with the airbrush. So I will do that now. I'm sure you all know how to use a rattle can, but just because this stuff is quite absorbent, there's no point in really using the airbrush straight away. It's nice and light, build it up. It only needs to be a smattering because, like I said, the board is quite absorbent, the cat litter is quite absorbent. All this is doing is sealing. So once it's sealed, then you can spray it with your airbrush, or you can use acrylic paint, whatever you want to use. And it's always best to cover it with white, because if any snow flock did come off, underneath it looks white anyway, it wouldn't be very obvious. But for example, if it was black and the snow flock came off, it'd be fairly obvious as chipped. So I'll attack it with the rattle can first. I'll come back once it's drying. Okay, so once that's dry, use some cheap acrylic paint. So there's no point in using your fine paint, like your Games Workshop stuff, Vallejo, whatever, air stuff. Just £1 per bottle from the local supermarket. Good old squeege. And brush it on. So be as heavy-handed as you want with this. I think I might go on fairly lightly at first, and then I'll start dry brushing. So we'll mix it in. It will dry a bit thinner anyway. And I could always go over the top of it later on. So wipe off the excess. Plenty of newspaper down as always for me, because I make a mess. Just gonna heavy dry brush initially, see what it looks like, and then probably go over again later on, because I do want some darker areas. the paper a little bit. So it doesn't have to be neat, not at all. And wait for that to dry. I'll go over it again. So I'll go over it a bit whiter and see what that looks like. Okay, so that's my little tiny snow berms. So a little bit of Vallejo white in my airbrush. Just adjusting it a minute. And I was gradually building up the white. Starting off a bit grey. Oh, get my fingers a little bit there. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Getting everything but the thing you want to paint covered in paint. So that's just a little bit whiter in the centre there. Now, I mean, you could always use a white rattle can, that's fine, but I want to make it look like it's a little bit of rock underneath if it does chip, but it's still snow covered. So not heavy rock, just rubbly stuff. Let's build up the white a bit more, so I have a little bit more. Oh, and smack the camera, there we go. I might as well cover my hands completely in paint. There we go. Right, when that's fully dry, then I'll start hitting it with some flock. Okay, so I have flocked the drift pieces, the PVA glue and the lovely Woodland Scenics soft snow. When it was dry, I thought I'll go over it again. Now, I'm sprinkling the stuff, I'm not pouring it on. You could go heavier if you wish, but rather than just a very plain white, like speed bump kind of looking thing, so if you look diagonal, it looks like a sleeping policeman. I wanted to look a bit more natural, so you can see that there is a few bits of something underneath, like it is a little bit of a drift. It's not just a bump, so it's got a bit more realistic texture to it. So those are looking pretty nice, and you know it's solid. The PVA glue's gone off, and that should last quite some time. Sorry about the background noise. It turns out there's gale force winds outside, and I can't do anything to get rid of it. But that is the light cover. Next, we'll go to the hard cover. And when it comes to the hard cover, what I like to do is some more of this cork stuff, and just lay it down side by side next to, glue it, and start tearing off the edges once it's glued. So we approximately measure it. Doesn't have to be too neat. Now you're not going to break this stuff, so we'll just mark it there. If needs be, we can always mark it and then cut it on our maps there, but that's approximately that length. So I'll do another one of the approximate length again. Like I said, it doesn't have to be too neat, because once it's stuck on, once it's glued on, we'll start tearing bits off. So plenty of glue. Okay, so then we glue it. Some cheap old Poundland or equivalent glue. Some super glue. Just squidge it on there. I'll squidge the other one side by side as tight as you can, really. And then we'll repeat the process with the other two. If you don't think the stonework, the blocks, whatever you're making, is high enough, you could always double stack them. And the best thing with cork is, I like to make cork buildings because it looks quite like concrete. Now I've just squeezed a little bit of super glue in the crack there, squeezed it closed. And with a good bit of sandpaper, I've roughed up the cork a little bit. And then what happens there is, the dust of the cork will near enough completely seal with the super glue, bonding it together nice and smooth. So this stuff is brilliant for making buildings. I love it. So that's what I'm going to do on these other two pieces. I'm going to glue some more pieces on the top, making it higher. So just like this, squeezing it together, it's just starting to bond. Give it a trusty bit of sandpaper. Rough it up a little bit. The dust, the super glue should bond together. So that's two done so far, and I'll attack the final piece. Okay, so once you've stuck all your walls like this together, you can start carving them out, making rocks. Now in this one, I decided to stick a piece of random plastic to it like this, and I'm going to form icicles once the rocks are all formed. So stick it like this, make it like a little piece of machinery that was busted, stick some crystals on it, which we'll get to that once we form the rocks. So turning cork into rocks is pretty simple. Now you don't have to turn these into rocks by putting a knife in, twisting it and tearing it. I like that because it looks more rocky, more natural, less obvious, less man-made. But if you wanted to, you put another layer on it and turn it into a wall possibly. So more urban environment, I mean I'm making this for Hoth, but if you want to make a more urban environment, make a wall. And use a drill and just catch it a little bit with the tip of the knife to make it look like the bullets have gone into a wall and chipped away at the concrete. But with this I'm making it look more natural. The only reason I'm not using polystyrene is this isn't going nowhere. Polystyrene will break. This is a lot more durable. Polystyrene's fine. You can use products like Mod Rock, things like that. That does look more natural like rock, granted, but for a local club environment I want something a bit more durable. So what I do is I get my chunk of cork, and if you notice I've got a little box to one side. Cork bits, yes I can spell right. No, I can spell proper. I'm half orc, so I like to keep little bits of cork in there, using it as stones and rocks, like stuff like that. Because I do not want stones on bases, because after a while it gets pretty heavy. So as you can see, I'm just jamming a knife in there, just being very, very careful. Just putting a knife part way in to the cork, twisting it, pulling it, trying not to cut as much as I can, because I want it to look natural. So I'm going to make a bit of a wound in the cork and start pulling it. So there we go, just like that. You can start seeing some shapes emerge. I don't want it to look too straight and too normal, so I'm literally just going to hack at this stuff, just like so. And I'm going to start beveling the edges a little bit as well, so it doesn't look too straight. So you can see there that it looks almost like a stone wall. I'm going to start taking bits off, tearing chunks out of it, getting rid of any straight edges that I can. So just like that. And beveling this bit here. I don't use too good a knife, like a scalpel or anything on this, because you don't want to cut the hell out of your hands, plus you don't want too decent a cut. So there, looks possibly a bit too good, so I'm going to have to tear it up a little bit. Don't want that, do we? Want to make it look rough and ready and look more natural. So there we go. I'm going to start beveling, cutting, slicing. Eventually I'll end up with something like this. And you can go as far as you want, but most of this is going to be covered with snow anyway, mainly on the top. And that's going to be roughly over half the height of a Stormtrooper, especially with the flock on the top, nearly the height of a Stormtrooper. So that, I still want the model to show, because it wouldn't be hardcover, it would be complete cover then. But that is what I'm aiming for. So I'll hack the hell out of this one, and I'll stick my terrain feature on there as well. Okay, so after I aerosoled these guys, like I said, cheapy rattle can, I dry brushed it a few times, getting lighter and lighter, just like so. So it's pretty much white. Now, the bases and the tops of these are going to be covered in snow. And what I'm using for that is, normally I make my own snow flock, because I'm on a budget. But for once, I actually treated myself. Yeah, that's right, I went all out. I bought some Woodland Scenics. So this stuff is lovely. It's really, really nice and fluffy. Stuff I use generally is a bit bigger in the grain, which is fine. It's okay. But it's not as good as this stuff. This stuff is lovely. So what I'm going to do is get some cheapy PVA. With bits still stuck on the front. There you go. Cheapy PVA. So I'm laying this stuff down on some newspaper because any excess of this snow I want to scoop up and I want to reuse. So I'm going to put it on the most flattest, highest pieces of the terrain with an Ode brush, not a decent brush. I'm not using my my Kolinsky Sable brushes, my Series 7s or anything like that. So just dabbing it on the top. A bit more here. I have 2 nuts. And I'll also go around the edges. So Ode brush, Ode GW brush. Just working it just like that. Lovely. And I'm going to go around the edges as well. So my hand's covered in spray paint. You get the idea. I'll come back when the whole thing's done. Okay, so the best thing about this pot is there's a pour mode and a shake mode. So I am going to flip the shake side. Now this whole thing is done. Like I said, you're going to waste a fair bit, but hopefully newspaper will pick it up. So this stuff is a lot lighter than my normal stuff. So I won't shake any off now until I'm sure it's fully soaked in, fully gone off. So I'm going to wait 24 hours. And snow flocking is always best done in batches, so if you want to do loads at this time, it's best to make one lot of mess, scoop it up and go again, rather than individual pieces. So I'll come back once this PVA glue is fully hard, so 24 hours or so, and then we'll shake off the excess and I'll show you the finished product of the hard cover. And this is what the hard cover looks like after a couple coats of the snow flock. So I wanted to do dusting rather than thick, big heaps of snow. So that's pretty nice, a nice little wall or rocky outcrop covered in snow. It looks pretty good on the table. And for what I want to use it for, Star Wars Legion is exactly the right height, so you can still see stormtroopers, but it acts as heavy cover. And this piece here I wanted to be a bit different. I've had some kind of sci-fi looking piece added to it. What I would like to do next is make icicles. Okay, so I've done a video on this previously, which I'll probably put up now actually, on how to make icicles. So on this piece here, you can use clear plastic rod and heat up and stretch. You can use like the flying stand bases you get on miniatures, but you know that costs money. I mean, each flying stand miniature base, you know, you're depriving a miniature of a flying stand, and plus I'm tight. So I bought a pack of forks from a local supermarket. I think it was about £1 for about a dozen. A bit of heat, stretch them out, or just snap off the plastic tines themselves, and just do that. So now that I've put a wash on this piece here, making it look a bit more rusted, a bit dirtier, a tiny little bit of snow on the surface, then it's all done, and I'll show you all of them together, and I'll take some pictures. I'll come right back after the last bit of snow flock. Okay, there you have it guys, that's the final piece, or pieces even. So this is your light cover, and this is your hard cover. Now you can use all these techniques in different games. This was purely for Star Wars Legion, so I needed what they call light cover, which is obviously snow up to about knee height, or light boxes, things like that. So in the basic game, you do have little boxes, you have barriers which are classed as hard cover like this. But because we wanted a Hoth table or a local club, it does get a bit boring if every single table has barriers. So you want something that can be classed as hard cover or light cover. And I thought this was quite thematic. Brilliant for Hoth. Other snow tables would be great if you're doing this for 40k, you wanted a bit of cover, for example, or even AOS. So obviously there is a little bit of like a sci-fi bit of piping there that I found. But you don't have to apply that. You can use whatever you want. If you wanted to use scrap piles covered in snow, generally you have them on like desert tables, like orcs would have little scrap piles, things like that. But no, this is brilliant. I mean, why not have snow on scrap piles, rocks, you know, like I used in this. You know, it's only your imagination that limits you. So thank you very much for watching, guys, for another hobby desk. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already for more content. We've always got stuff on the hobby desk. We've got 40k battle reports. We have more battle reports coming. Hopefully some Legion. So using some of this, you might see this on the table. Be brilliant. So see you next time. Thank you.